What's going on, y'all? This is Dylan with Dylan Talks Tone. Today we're going to talk about what you need to repair your guitar, to do maintenance on your guitar. First thing, it is finally below like 85 degrees for the first time in forever in Georgia, so I'm actually outside. It's beautiful, just drinking a cup of coffee. I got a new meter this weekend, and it made me think, when I kind of scroll through Facebook groups and I scroll through different gear forums and stuff, there's a lot of different perspectives on the tools you think you need to repair a guitar, and people will kind of shy away from doing their own guitar maintenance because they don't think they have the right stuff. So what I thought I would do this morning is let's talk a little bit about kind of the basic essentials that personally I think every guitar player needs to have. Now, one of the things that kind of prompted me to do this video was, well, I had a piece of equipment fail and I had to get a new one. And I paid a fair amount of money for this because I do this for a living. And I thought, like I said, a lot of people get overwhelmed with this stuff. The other thing that kind of overwhelms people is when they get into a Facebook group or they get into somewhere online and they say, hey, I have this repair that needs to be done to my guitar. How do I do it? And the replies are a lot of times like these weird, like jerry-rig shortcut sort of things, like stuff I would never use on my guitar, and it gets a little confusing, in my opinion, for newer players. Put it in the comments below, first of all, if that's ever happened to you, like if you get into a discussion on Facebook or in a forum, and you're like totally lost with what you found because it's totally confusing. Personally, I think a lot of people take shortcuts where they don't really need to. Let's get straight into it. What do you want to go? Do you want to go kind of easy repairs to hard repairs? Do you want to go hard repairs to easy repairs? I'll tell you what, let's go easy to hard because this will kind of ramp up in the level of commitment that we have to repairing our guitars, and then you can decide if, you know what, I don't want to get in that far. Let's just go ahead and pay somebody to do it. I don't even want to do it myself, okay? So we're going to start over here. First, and we're going to go through these one by one. I'm not just going to say, go get this kit. I'm going to say, go get this kit, but we're not going to say that. You may have some of these tools already. First of all, I think every guitar repair kit, first of all, it needs to have a set of screwdrivers and little socket wrenches and little Allen keys for various things, okay? So for a Floyd Rose style guitar, you're gonna need a pretty extensive Allen key set. You're gonna need 3 or 4 sizes. Or anytime you have a guitar with a tremolo on it, or anything with a metal bridge, so like a Telecaster, even a Strat, you're gonna need to have Allen keys. You're probably gonna have to have standard and metric around because some bridges have standard sizes and some bridges have metric sizes, especially depending on where your guitar was made. If it was made in Japan, or if it was made in China, or if it was made in Indonesia, it's probably gonna have metric parts. But there's a lot of higher end guitars also, for instance, made in Europe, that also come with metric parts too. So you're gonna wanna have a metric and a standard set. This kit by Cruise Tools has kind of all the essential stuff. Now, some truss rods are going to use an Allen key. Some truss rods are going to use a little socket, like an old Gibson style truss rod is going to use like a socket like this. And so you're going to want to have both of those around. You're also going to want a socket if you have like a Floyd Rose to tighten down that tremolo arm nut. I just had to do that on a Floyd Rose last week. So this Cruise Tools kit has all of those kind of in a compact thing. I like this one in particular for doing Floyd Rose stuff because it has the screwdriver handle. And so if I'm adjusting intonation or if I'm playing with that tremolo at all, I really like that. Also, if I'm setting action on a Telecaster, I just like having a bigger handle, like a normal screwdriver handle on it like this. So you can take, one of these Allen keys that you're going to use. This is not the right size, but you can take this Allen key that you're going to use to adjust the action on your Tele, and instead of having to turn like an Allen key, I really like doing it this way. So to me, this is a super functional, super killer set. I also like the fact that it's just all in one place and it's compact. This whole bag actually fits in my guitar case, so I take it with me everywhere. The other thing I think everybody should have, first of all, let's go easy stuff. So that's kind of like your, just adjusting everything. Obviously a string crank. Have a good string crank in your kit. And actually, the better ones have the little end pin popper thing for acoustic guitars. So that's pretty cool. Something to nip your strings with. Are you one of those people like my dad who like coils them all up and makes them go like all jangly on the end of the guitar? I hate that. I trim all my stuff super tight, and there you go. That's what I use. Now you can use any kind of side cutter you want for this, but if it's not a good quality one, the steel in guitar strings will be kind of hard on it, and over a time you'll get those little kind of notches in there where you'll have wear. This is the Cruise Tools one that comes with this. I've been using this for about 3 years. It works amazing. Cuts strings super easy. It all comes in this kit. So one of the things that I've run into with really cheap ones though is where you go to snip the string and it won't want to come all the way through the first try, and then you kind of have to bend it back and forth, and I feel like you can end up like nicking your peg head and stuff. So getting a good quality one that just cuts it off the first time, super important. When we start talking about finer setup stuff, so you want to set the nut height on your guitar, you want to check your action, I like to make sure that we have a good set of measuring tools. You can get these anywhere, you know, any kind of auto parts store, a good feeler gauge set. This one goes from 5 thousandths to 25 thousandths, and I find this to be sufficient for setting my nut height, for setting, and it's got like a little end ruler here so I can measure how many 64ths my action is. It's kind of all built into the same thing. I actually have another Cruise Tools one from another kit that I use a lot of the time because I like it, because it's bigger and it's got a couple of different measurements on it. In fact, on the back it's got like a little cheat sheet if you can't remember what you're supposed to, your baseline, you know, that kind of thing. So that's on there. But I think having a good set of feeler gauges with a measuring stick where you can measure in 64ths or millimeters, depending on where you are in the world. I get jammed on all the time. This isn't a metric country, you're in the United States. Well, I use metric for a lot of stuff, especially being a dirt bike guy from back in the, you know, being a dirt bike guy, I use a lot of metric stuff. So I think mostly in metric, but 64ths or metric, it's on there. So let's dive a little deeper into this. Oh, before we get a little deeper, I know it sounds weird to say having a capo for a repair tool is a thing, but when you're setting your neck relief on a guitar, to put it on the first fret is fantastic. To set your nut height, to put it on the 3rd fret is fantastic. Just to have a capo just for working with, you know, if you have another capo, you don't need to buy a capo for working on your guitar. You can just use your normal capo that you use. But this is just a cheap work capo. It comes in the kit. Anyway, that's kind of my main string changes, setting up guitars, working on everything. I do most everything. If a customer sends me a guitar with, it wants a whole setup, this is it. I use this right here. Everything in there is what I need to do it. Okay, coffee break. And that all comes in there. I'll put a link to this stuff in the description below. The other thing is a string rest, neck rest. When you work on your guitar, a neck rest is really nice because, first of all, you don't want to scratch your guitar up more than you need to. I just put a towel on the dining room table and then I use this thing. It folds up flat. It can go in your guitar case too. You can go on the road with you. I really, really dig this neck rest. Now, if you watch our action videos and, you know, working on your guitar videos, setup videos, you'll know where we put this. It gets a little particular depending on what you're doing on your guitar, but I really like this one because it folds up nice and flat, out of the way. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into the guitar setup situation. Nut files. This is a thing that a lot of people are really, really afraid of, is working on the nut height of their guitar and worrying that they're gonna ruin it and have to replace the nut and cut a whole new nut and stuff. I understand that. If you don't wanna get into this, I can understand why you wouldn't want to. However, this is a super valuable skill to learn, to be able to set up a nut, because it is one of the baselines of how your guitar is gonna play, and understanding it is a huge, huge deal. So we have some setup videos about this. We're actually going to be making some more setup videos about this very soon. These are not cheap. You know, a good set of these is close to $100 American at this time. Yeah, you can look in the links below for current pricing. Again, this is one where you kind of have to dive in a little deeper and learn a little bit more. But if this is a skill that you can master and that you can comfortably work on your own guitars with the use of these tools and these, you'll be able to do anything. You'll be able to do anything. And I'll tell you what, okay, so this is close to about $100 right now. But this kit stuff over here, I mean, you're talking under $40 for this stuff, right? So it's not expensive. It's not expensive to do it. The other thing that I think every guitar player should have in their arsenal is a digital multimeter. The majority of questions that we get in our inbox after we'll sell somebody a set of pickups and they install them and they say, well, something doesn't work, or you know, there's an issue with this or that, or I think I need new pots, or I think I need a new switch, or I think I need a new whatever. And I'll say, can you do me a favor? Can you check this, this, and this, and this? How do I do that? Do you have a meter? No, I don't. I'm gonna have to go somewhere. You can get one of these. This one's about 150 bucks, but like I said, I do this for a living. You can get one of these for about $20. So we'll put a link to an affordable one just off of Amazon. It doesn't need to be fancy. You just need to be able to, honestly, for what you do, most of the time with a basic, most people basic repairs, just resistance. I like to have voltage, and I like to have capacitance, but most of your low price meters are gonna do that. We'll put a link to a good one that I think will work for most things. In fact, it's the one I was using before I got this every day until it broke. But again, if you're a hobbyist and you're only using it a couple of times a week or a couple of times a month or a couple of times a year, it'll probably last you forever. So we'll put a link to one of those in the description below. You gotta have one of these. If you want me to do a video on how to use this with guitar repair, put it in the comments and maybe we'll do that. Soldering iron. We have a course about how to solder on Skillshare. There's a link to it in the description. Learn to solder. This thing is only 40 bucks. Learn to solder. I think it's super important for guitar players to be able to learn to solder. And you're gonna say, well, you're putting yourself out of business by telling people just to learn this stuff. Honestly, I hate working on guitars. I like building brand new stuff. So, and you don't like working on stuff either. But a $90 repair, a $100 repair, and guitar shops take forever. They always seem to take longer than they say. What if you could just fix it in one afternoon with $15 worth of parts and a $40 soldering iron, and you had the skill to be able to do that yourself? It's a very simple thing to learn once you understand the concepts. That Skillshare course that we have is really good in teaching that. I think you'll dig it. So there's just a basic rundown. That's like the basic stuff that I have in my toolbox. Now, of course, you know, I build pickups for a living, so I have all kinds of other stuff. I have a pickup winder, I have LC meter, I have all kinds of other stuff. A thing to magnetize magnets with. If you want to see like a full in-depth thing of all the tools that it takes me to make pickups on a daily basis, I could spread all that stuff out on this table right here and we can make a video about that. But I think that is like more focused stuff, where this right here is, I think this is right here, just this little pile of stuff, just this little pile of stuff is something I think every guitar player should have. And I think if you did and had, you know, just acquired the basic skills surrounding this stuff, you would, first of all, save yourself a ton of money. And second of all, it would make you more familiar with tone in general, because you'd understand more about how your guitar works. But you would also, I think you would play differently if you knew, hey, I made this setup adjustment and oh, this made me feel like, oh, the guitar feels better and now I'm playing different. Like once you really become one with your instrument when you start to do your own maintenance. And I think that having just this basic setup of tools right here is the thing. I'll tell you what, we'll put links to all this junk in the description below. Over the next couple of days, we're gonna put a blog post up on Dylan Talks Tone that kind of talks about all this stuff. And I think if you have specific questions about how to use any of it, please put it in the comments, because we would love to make a video about that too. I mean, I think it would be really cool to make a video about how any of this stuff works. Thanks for hanging out for a few minutes. Get yourself some basic tools. Play your guitar. That's all you got to do. Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.